Kids, today we're going to read Pua and Heihei. It's Moana. The feast to welcome spring was about to start. Moana and Grandma Tala were busy collecting shells. Moana's pet pig, Pua, tried to help, but the shells he found were never empty. Moana was making her father a surprise gift for the feast, an anklet. Moana strung a final shell onto the anklet, finishing it. Just then, Heihei, the foolish village rooster, ran by them wearing a pair of coconuts on his head. "Silly Heihei," Moana said, removing the coconut. Heihei turned and started pecking at Grandma's feet. You've no more brains than a grain of sand," said Grandma, shooing him away. But he just started pecking the sand instead. In the village, preparations for the feast had begun. While everyone was hard at work, Heihei just got in the way. Men were busy building the umu, an underground oven. They piled up pieces of wood, dried husk, and coconut shells. After they started the fire, they added rocks. It wasn't long before the umu was hot enough to roast bananas, fish, and taro roots. Heihei walked onto the hot rocks. "You'll set yourself on fire, you silly bird," one man yelled, chasing him away. Heihei ran away and stepped on particularly finished platter woven from pandan leaves. His tiny foot got trapped, but he didn't even notice as he dragged the large platter behind him. Grandma Tala tried to catch him, but as she reached for him, she slipped on the platter. Unfortunately, Moana was there to catch her. In all the commotion, neither of them noticed that Moana had dropped the anklet. It landed around Heihei's neck, and he dashed away. "That is it," Grandma Tala said. She wasn't giving up. She grabbed a hand-woven leaf basket and in one fell swoop, trapped Heihei and clinched the basket shut. He hadn't seen her coming. He was too busy pecking at a rock. But Grandma had been so focused on catching the rooster that she hadn't seen the anklet around his neck. But Moana had just realized the anklet was missing. "Oh no," she said. Just then Pua spotted the basket. He saw Heihei's beak sticking out between the gaps of the woven leaves. When he looked closer, Pua noticed the anklet around the rooster's neck. He was determined to retrieve it for Moana. But first, Pua had to open the basket. He rolled it over and over, but that didn't work. Then Pua put the basket on top of a stick. He jumped on the stick and sent the basket flying. It fell onto the ground, but it was still tightly shut. He had to think of another idea. On the ground, Pua saw a long vine. He picked it up and trotted back to the basket. Pua looped the vine around the basket and dragged it along, running as fast as he could. Heihei's legs slipped out and he ran to keep up. Pua pulled the basket past some villagers because Heihei had continued to peck and peck. His head stuck out through another hole he'd made. They passed a man cutting breadfruit. When he sliced it in half, a tasty chunk flew right into Heihei's mouth. When Pua heard music, he knew that the feast was about to begin. He dragged the basket toward a slender tree and tossed it onto a branch. Then he jumped up after it. Pua bounced on the branch and Heihei's basket flew into the air and then back down to the branch. The higher Pua bounced, the higher the basket flew. Finally, Pua bounced so high that the branch flung the basket straight into him. The two animals soared through the air. Pua and Heihei squealed and chuckled with glee. When they hit the ground, the basket finally opened. Pua was thrilled. He could get the anklet to Moana, but they rolled right into a large fishing net. Moana untangled them and gasped when she saw the anklet around Pua's snout. "You found it," she said, giving him a big hug. Later that evening, Moana gave Chief to the anklet. "I love it," he said. As Moana and her father hugged, Pua heard a strange sound. It was Heihei. He couldn't cluck because his beak was buried in a piece of driftwood, and he'd gotten tangled up in pieces of the basket again. Fortunately, Pua was ready to help him again. The end. Thanks for listening. Read lots.